Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Definitely.
Today, we're taking a trip to northern India
Okay.
to explore the food culture of Haryana. But we're not just talking about what they eat.
Right.
It's more like why and how their cuisine evolved.
Yeah.
So to guide us, we have this research paper
Oh, yeah.
titled Exploring the Food Heritage of Haryana, a Cultural Perspective.
It's pretty in-depth.
It is, filled with interviews with actual residents.
Wow.
And a really interesting historical analysis of the region.
Very cool.
So the paper immediately calls Haryana the land of Rotis,
Ah. Okay.
which obviously caught my attention.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Why is the roti so central to their cuisine?
So picture Haryana's landscape, right?
Okay.
It's mostly agricultural, and for a long time, irrigation was limited.
Ah, I see.
Farmers had to rely on crops that could handle tough conditions.
Makes sense.
Things like jawar, bazaar, and maize.
So they had to be resourceful.
Exactly. And that's where the roti comes in.
Made from those easily grown grains.
So it's like a symbol of that adaptability.
Exactly. Simple, adaptable.
Perfect for a long day working the land.
Exactly, yeah.
It makes you think about it differently, doesn't it?
It really does. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Yeah.
Haryana isn't just one big region.
Right.
It has 5 distinct cultural zones.
Hold on. 5?
Yep. Ahorwal, Mewat, Bogar, Nardak, and Kadar.
Wow. So are we talking like regional variations within Haryana's cuisine?
You got it. Each zone adds its own twist.
Fascinating. Give me some examples.
Well, let's see. Ahirwal, known for its dairy,
Okay.
uses a lot of ghee in its cooking.
Oh, interesting.
While in Mewat, you see influences from Mughal cuisine.
Oh, wow. Because of the larger Muslim population.
Right. So even though roti might be everywhere,
Right.
the way it's made, what you eat it with,
Yeah.
changes quite a bit.
Now that's what I call variety. This research also mentions a strong lacto-vegetarian tradition in Haryana.
Is that connected to this whole agricultural way of life?
Absolutely. Haryana is famous for its milk production.
Oh, right.
And cattle, especially Murrah buffaloes and Haryana cows, are highly respected.
Okay. So dairy's a big part of their diet?
Oh, huge. Their per capita milk consumption is 494 grams per day,
Wow.
more than 3 times the national average.
That's incredible.
They use homemade butter, tindi ghee,
Okay.
generously in cooking.
Interesting.
And it's also tradition to gift ghee, gond, and lattice to new mothers.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's like food is a way of showing care.
I love that. So what does a typical day of eating look like in Haryana?
Okay, so picture this. You start the day
All right.
with rasti and rotis.
Okay. Keeping it simple and filling.
Exactly. Lunch usually involves more roti,
More roti.
but this time paired with a vegetable or pulse dish.
Still pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but evenings
Yeah.
get a little more interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
In summer, they often have milk and roti with rabdi.
Rabdi.
It's this fermented buttermilk flour.
Oh, interesting.
Then, in monsoon season, it's dalia, a broken wheat porridge,
Okay.
and winter calls for khichdi,
What's that?
a hearty dish with bajra and pulses.
Wow. So their meals really change with the seasons.
It's all about working with what's available.
True. And it sounds like that resourcefulness isn't just in the food itself,
You're right.
but in their culture too.
Their folk songs celebrate harvests and everyday food practices.
Really?
Yeah. Their art forms, like Fulkari embroidery, use motifs inspired by agriculture. And even their pottery reflects this, you know?
So it's like food is more than just fuel for them.
It's an art form, a story, a way of life.
I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of stories, what about festivals?
Oh, festivals are huge in Haryana's food culture.
Okay, I'm excited. Tell me about some of them.
Well, take Baisakhi, for instance. It marks the wheat harvest, and they feast on sarson da saag and makki di roti.
So they're celebrating their staple crops.
Exactly. Then there's Tej, which coincides with the monsoon season.
Okay.
It's all about fresh produce and greens, reflecting nature's bounty.
So festivals are a way to celebrate the land, but also to come together.
Right. These gatherings really highlight how food is central to their identity.
This is already so insightful. Food is truly connected to history and culture.
It truly is. But in Haryana's case, these connections have faced some challenges, especially in recent decades.
Oh, this is where it gets even more interesting. What kind of challenges?
Well, the Green Revolution in the 70s and 80s,
Right.
while it boosted agricultural production,
Yeah.
it also brought in cash crops like rice, sugarcane, and cotton.
So it diversified their diets, but also shifted preferences.
It did. And then came globalization.
Ah,
With
yes.
fast food, processed foods, and foreign cuisines.
Adding a whole new layer to the mix.
It really does. This creates a challenge for preserving Haryana's unique culinary heritage.
That's a struggle many cultures face today.
Absolutely.
So what does all this mean for the future of Haryana's food culture?
That's a great question. You know what's interesting, though? Even with all these new influences,
Right.
the heart of Haryanvi cuisine,
Yeah.
it's still rooted in simplicity
Oh, yeah.
and resourcefulness.
Those dishes that came from necessity,
Oh,
right?
place.
Someone's connected to the land and the seasons.
Yeah,
Those haven't disappeared.
not at all.
So it's almost like there's this tension between tradition and modernity.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but it's not a simple either situation.
Got it.
It's more like an evolution,
Okay.
a blend of different influences.
So imagine a spectrum
Okay, yeah.
with those traditional meals on one end
Right.
and those modern globalized options on the other.
And people are navigating that spectrum
Yeah.
based on their lives, their tastes.
It makes you wonder, though, how do you preserve a food culture amidst all that change?
That is the question, isn't it?
Can you just freeze it in time?
Right.
Or is there a way to adapt, to evolve,
Yeah.
while still honoring the essence of the tradition?
It's tricky.
What does our research paper say about this?
Well, it points out some challenges.
Okay.
Like with the Green Revolution's focus on cash crops,
Mm-hmm.
it meant less attention to those traditional grains.
The ones we talked about, like Jawar and Bazara.
Exactly. And then you have globalization,
Yeah.
where processed foods are often marketed as modern or aspirational.
So it's not just about the food itself,
Right.
but how people see it, what they value.
Absolutely. It's a whole social thing, too.
Okay.
As lifestyles change, people move to cities.
Yeah.
Traditional practices can seem outdated
I see.
or inconvenient, but there is a growing awareness of how important it is to preserve that heritage,
Right.
including the culinary side.
It's like people are realizing that losing those traditions means losing a part of themselves.
A part of their history.
Wow. Yeah.
It's definitely something to ponder, as we
Yeah.
navigate the world of food in the 21st century.
It's definitely food for thought.
Ew.
I'll be thinking about that as I plan my next meal.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey into Haryana's food culture.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.